Alright, so what we want to do is make a graph of our data from the potato experiment. And what I've done is set up our two sets of information into two columns here. In one column I have my salt concentrations listed as a percent, and these are the ones that we used. Then I have the weight change, so this is what you are going to measure, and remember this is your final weight minus your initial weight. And that's how we get some of these negative values. So this is what I want to graph. There are a couple of ways we can do this, but what I'm going to do is click over here, go to Insert, and we're going to insert a scatter plot. When we're doing this kind of graph, we need to use a scatter plot. So I'm going to select a scatter plot without connecting lines, and it's going to give me a blank space. I have to fill in my data. So I go over here to select data. When I click on that, it will allow me to pick what information I'm going to use. So I'm going to add, down here where it says add. Series name doesn't matter, but you'll notice here we've got series X values and series Y values. Remember that the X values are the ones that are going to go along the X-axis, so those ones are going to go along the bottom of the graph. And our X values are our independent variables. And our independent variable is the one that we set up, and that's our salt concentration. So what I do is click in there, and I'm going to highlight just the numbers, so not the title of that column. I only want the numbers here. My Y series, I'm going to delete that. So I've got my Y series then is my Y-axis. And remember that my Y-axis values, those are going to be my dependent variable, in this case my weight change. So I'm going to highlight those and hit OK. Alright, now that I've hit OK twice, we have my graph. This Series 1 legend over here, we don't need that. So I'm just going to click on that and delete it and give us a little more space to work with. Now, we want to make sure that we have our axes labeled so that we know what is going on there. In order to label our axes, we have to make sure we've clicked on the graph, and then we go to Layout. Under Layout, I have Axis Titles. Start with my horizontal axis, and I do want one, so I'm going to click there. And then I just type in what I want for my horizontal axis. Now, my horizontal, that's my independent variable, so that's salt concentration. So I'm going to go ahead and type in salt concentration. And then we want to know the units, so I make sure to put percent in parentheses there. Hit Enter, and it adds that for me. I also want to put in an axis label for my vertical axis. So I'm going to click on that one. So this is going to show up here, and this then is going to be my dependent variable. So I have my weight change, and this is measured in grams. Alright, so we've got our data points graphed. We have our axes labeled. One of the things we need, though, is that best fit line we talked about. So to get the best fit line, we have to make sure that we have clicked on the graph, and then we can go up here, still under the Layout tab, and go to the trend line. And when I open up the trend line, what I want is a linear trend line. If I click on that, it adds in my best fit line for me. So I don't have to work at trying to figure out where it goes. So you can see that I've got the best fit line figured out for me and plotted in here. This will then allow us to do the two things we talked about in class. Figure out where what the concentration of salt was in the potato. And we do that by looking at the point where our weight change would be 0 and looking where that intersects. The other thing is figuring out our unknown. Notice I did not graph our unknown. We have a weight change, so we would look for our weight change here and simply follow that over to where it hits our trend line, and then follow down from there to where it hits our x-axis, which gives us our salt concentration. Now, for this to be a proper graph, we have to add a figure caption to it. And that figure caption needs to describe the information that went into making this particular graph. So I might do something like change in mass of a 4 centimeter potato core after 25 minutes soaking in different salt solutions. So this will give you a good idea of what information is being shown in here. So we've got all of the things that we need, and you could print this out and use this as part of your homework.